Right. Okay. So good morning, everybody. Hopefully, is everybody seeing my screen? Val, are you seeing the screen okay? Is that coming through all
Yeah,
right for
nice and
everybody?
clear. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll actually pick up on a couple of things this morning. We'll concentrate on barcoding, but there's a couple of other applications that I'll bring in today, particularly as I'm conscious, Joy, that you're on the session today. You've already got barcoding. So we'll also pick up on courier integration and documents, which hook in really nicely to our barcoding solution. So barcoding, in fact, I don't know if you can see on the screen there, I've got a little device. It's an integrated scanner. We always tend to recommend integrated scanners rather than separate devices. Just makes it really simple for your staff in order to go round the warehouse and be able to scan items. So barcoding is essentially, as you can see on the far left-hand corner, if I come to the right area, is actually an integrated module that sits directly inside of Sage 200. But as you'll see in a moment, it connects to some devices. So each of your users will have a device with their own barcoding app on it. And that connects to Sage via one Sage Connector web license. So it's all live, as you'll see in a moment, and we don't need a Sage client license. Obviously, it works out an awful lot cheaper for you. Now, barcoding, interesting enough, although we call it barcoding, don't worry if you don't have suppliers sending you items with barcode labels on. One of the things that you'll see in us shortly is that I can book something in without actually having a barcode label, and I can then produce a barcode label. Now, for those of you who perhaps maybe do already receive barcode labels or need to track traceable items, whether it's batch traceability or serial numbered items, I would definitely recommend having a look at the GS1 format. Though, now, that's a separate subscription, and we do have information on our website. That's some information that Steve can send you some links on. So, the main benefit, really, or one of the benefits of the GS1 format is that it combines all of that batch traceability information in the same label for you. So essentially, it just means that you're not having to key that information in separately. So it's avoiding, re-keying in or keying in incorrect information. So if I come and show you, I'll be flicking through a couple of screens this morning. So if I come and show you the device, so you'll see on the device, there's essentially the barcoding software that we're going to be looking at. And you'll see in my menu, I have a lot of options. Some may be relevant to some of you, others may not be. So I'll explain a little bit better as we work through the menu. But obviously, if you don't have some of those modules that integrate with barcoding, they'll simply disappear off the device. And indeed, you can customize that menu option so users will only see the options that you want them to see. So a classic example, I always tend to sort of revert down to the write-off stock. That's usually a bit of a contentious one that most organizations don't obviously want all of their staff to be able to write off the stock. So as you'll see, there's various options as we scroll down. So all I'm going to come and do this morning is we're going to come and do a few simple processes. So that's booking in a stock item, putting it away in various different formats, the potential to inspect an item when we book something in, as well as dispatching, doing things like stock take, doing stock movements, whether that's between our bin locations. So bin locations are the areas within your warehouse, or indeed whether it's moving your stock between your warehouse locations. So today is obviously just really to give you a bit of a feel and a flavour on how the software can work. Obviously, if this is something that you feel might be of benefit to you, then have a chat with Steve and we can organise more of a one-to-one demonstration for you. Right, let's come into standard Sage. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a purchase order that we've already got on the system. So as they used to say when I was a kid, in true Blue Peter style fashion, here's one I've prepared earlier, and I'm showing my age this morning, Val. So you'll see, let me just minimize the video screens out the way. So you'll see I've got a purchase order here. Now I haven't received anything. So this is where you'll see just how fast the system works. And obviously the whole purpose of this is it's eliminating lots of bits of paper flying all over the place. and making it a far more efficient way of managing that process. So if I come into my screen, imagine I'm one of your guys now in your warehouse, you'll see I've got a list of my purchase orders. So I could just simply work my way down the list. I could filter it by a date range. I could filter it in here by the supplier details if I wanted to, or as I'm about to do, I'm going to filter it by the purchase order number. So if we come and find that purchase order that I've literally just shown you. Now, I've got a little tick in that box, and that's just flagging to me that I've locked this particular stock item down as something that I want to inspect. Now, it may very well be that you have certain items that you receive in that you always want to do a bit of a quality checking. Others might not be necessarily as relevant. So this is something that you can set at stock item level. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, I can book something in. So you'll see I can either key it in by popping in the quantity, and we can then produce a barcode label. Now, I've also got the ability to take a photo of the item as I'm booking it in. And you'll see when we come back into Sage in a moment, we can then store that image against the purchase order using another module of ours called Documents. And very simply at this point, as I mentioned, I can produce the label, I can confirm the receipt, and I can then do a separate process whereby we can put it away, or I can put it straight away. Now, for those of you who are using or considering our work sort of processing module, this can also link into our work sort of processing, as I'll show you later on. So if we've generated a purchase order and that purchase order has been specifically for a works order component, we can do the confirming the receipt, but we can also allocate an issue all at the same time without having to do that as a separate process. Now, I'm going to confirm it as a receipt because I'm going to show you the different ways that we can then put that away. And there we go. It's literally as simple as that. And if we whiz back into the purchase order, back in Sage, as I mentioned, I haven't had to take any goods receipt note to the office. I haven't had to print off any bits of paper. So we've saved ourselves lots of money in printing paper and, of course, saving the planet. There we go. There's our good old espresso machine that has now been received. So no duplication of entry of information. It's just done it all automatically for me. Now, I mentioned that there's the possibility of doing an inspection process. If we come back into the device for a second, you'll see I've got a dedicated, what we call an inspection bin location set up. And I've also got a quarantine bin location. So the idea of this is that nobody can pick an item or indeed issue it to a works order unless it's passed the inspection. Now, if it hasn't passed the inspection, that's when it will automatically go into a dedicated quarantine bin location. And that quarantine bin location will then also be locked down. So again, I can't pick from it. So we lock it down. So if somebody tried to pick from it, they wouldn't be able to. So I'm going to go to my dedicated inspection bin location. And you'll see I've got a whole host of items in here that I need to inspect. So I'm going to come and find my coffee machine that I showed you a second ago. So have I got a coffee machine? Let's come to my coffee cup. Now, at this point, you'll see I have a configurable set of questions. So as I said, you can call these anything you like. It could be a drop-down box with a pre-confined answer. It could be a tick box. It could be a date field. I could even take, again, a photo of this. So I'm just going to pop in yes, yes, yes to all of those questions, confirmed, and that's now passed. And that's now, as you can see, it's passed the inspection and it's available now for me to put away. Now, again, in the background, what we do is we set up, as you know, in Standard Sage, you set up your warehouses, you set up your bin locations as to where you want those items to be put away. When we come and put those items away, we have one of a couple of ways that we can do it. So I mentioned when we receive it in, we can put it straight away at that point. My other way is that I can come in and I can put it away one stock item at a time. So again, if we come and find my coffee machine, so there's my coffee machine. So at this point, it's going to automatically list all of the bin locations that we've already got set up and Sage against that coffee machine in this scenario. Now we've done it in order. So you'll see I've basically said to my warehouse team, I always want you to put it in the AC10A bin location first. Now it might be that I get to all of those locations and we've run out of space. So we've given you the flexibility to still go and put it away in a different location and create that bin location to associate it to that stock item. So there's always still that flexibility. And again, of course, I can scan the item or I can key it in. And at that point, I can say, I want to put that away into that location. And there we go. As simple as that. That's now moved that coffee machine from that bin location into that AC10A bin location. Now, if you're the type of organisation that gets lots and lots of purchase orders in and you're getting them on quite a frequent basis, you might not have time to put them away. So one of your alternative options is literally just to receive all of your purchase orders in. So you might have a goods in location as an example. And then you have the option to do what we call a wave put away. So what that's enabling you to do is to consolidate all of your purchase orders up together with all of those individual components, and then essentially say, right, I am now going to put, so I'm going to put in, we'll say 200 of those away. I'm going to put 67 of those away. So I'm literally, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going down my list of all of the outstanding items, and I'm going to basically create what we call a wave. So these are all of my waves that I've created. And if I now come down to that wave that we've literally just created, it's just now listing all of the items for me to put away. So that's a really beneficial way of doing it. As I said, if you're getting lots and lots of purchase orders coming in on a day-to-day basis, and then all I'm doing is exactly the same scenario as you just saw a moment ago. I'm literally saying, right, I'm now putting this one away. I have got the option at this point to say, when I put it away, do I want to put it away in a package? And obviously you can set up all of your different pieces of packaging in there. So you can say, what type of package am I putting it away into? Right, so we've received a purchase order in. We've put it away. We've done an inspection process. Of course, the next process, sorry, the one thing that I completely forgot to show you, memory like a sieve, if I come back to that purchase order, is that photo that we took. Now, I did mention that this is an additional module. So you'll see there's our documents module. And if I just click on our documents module, there's a rather dodgy looking photo of the screen that I just took. So that actually allows you to do lots of other things, by the way. You can you can scan an invoice against a purchase ledger invoice. You can scan in a customer's purchase order against a sales order. You can scan a document in against the nominal ledger. So there are far more benefits than just linking documents to barcoding. And again, as you'll see, we can also take a photo of the dispatched item before we dispatch it and store that against the sales order as well. And I'm finding more and more customers are actually starting to use that. Because they're finding that things are getting damaged, whether it's the courier or customers are calling up saying they didn't receive the item or it was damaged, and maybe, you know, it's a customer issue. So at least if you've got that confirmation of, you know, what it was like before it was dispatched, you've got that evidence. So let's come and have a look at a sales order. So all I'm going to do is come into, again, standard Sage sales order processing. And again, if we come and have a look at a sales order, you'll see, again, my Sicon sales order. Now, we have a couple of additional pieces of information against that sales order. So the first is we have this little ready to pick tick box. Now, I've got mine defaulted to always tick for me. Now, it's a mechanism for you to control which of your sales orders appear on the device. And we have some customers that say, we don't want all of the sales orders to appear on the device. We want to decide which ones appear. So that's essentially a mechanism to do that. But as I said, if it doesn't matter, you're happy as soon as the sales order goes on and the stock's allocated for it to appear on the device, then of course we can have that defaulted. So you don't need to then keep ticking it. Now, you can leave this open so anybody can pick it, or as you can see, I've got a list of all of my pickers in the warehouse, and I have the ability then at that point to assign it to a specific picker. Now, the other thing that we can do is we can use the standard Sage order priority. So if we've got that customer that we always want to, make sure that their order goes out first, you'll see in the barcoding device in a moment that the A's will jump to the top of the queue. Now, I briefly alluded to the fact that we have a courier integration software that can tie in also to barcoding. And that is exactly what that extra delivery service drop-down box is there. Now, I've got mine linked to DPD. You'll see on our website there are all sorts of couriers that we connect to, so Royal Mail, DPD, TNT, FedEx. As I said, if you have a look at our website, that lists the couriers that we link to. Now, once you've set the couriers up in the background and the different courier services, they'll obviously appear in that drop-down box. And you've either got the option to choose at this point which delivery courier and which service you want to send this out through to, or you can allow your staff to choose on the device. Now, the alternative, again, as I've got here, is I've defaulted against, in this case, Sicon Limited, to say whenever we send anything out for Sicon, we always want it to go through DPD and we always want it to go next day. So I don't need to keep remembering which service and which courier. It just does it all automatically for me. So tying in nicely with that courier, we just simply store in the background the weights of those items. So when we then come and send that information up to the courier, it just means that we're not having to put the weight in and all the information associated to the weight. It does all of that for us. So again, it eliminates the need for us to key that data in, and it produces the barcode label, again, as I'll show you later on. So there's the weight, and if we come back to the values and the quantities, you'll see that again I've not dispatched it, but it is allocated. So if I come and save that, and if you remember 6088, we're going to come to our barcoding device now. Sorry, I've forgotten I've turned my audit log on. This is another of our modules. So it just simply tracks, as you can see, any changes that get made to a screen. Right, let's come to our device, shall we? So if I come to my barcoding device, and we'll come to dispatch a sales order this time. Now, again, I've got a couple of options at this point. I can either, sorry, let me go back to the device. I can either filter by any one of those analysis codes. So we're just simply using the standard Sage analysis codes. And in fact, if you are the type of organization that does your own deliveries, as an example, and you have specific routes, you can set all of that up against an analysis code, and we can then pick according to that analysis code and that specific vehicle. So as I said, we can pick by the priority, by the date, or I can pick by any one of those. So I can filter, as I'm about to do, by the customer, or I can filter again by the sales order. So if I come and find 6088, so it's telling me now, and it's prompting me that I actually have other orders with the same address for that customer. So do I want to create a wave pick? So similar to the wave put away, it's a more efficient way of me essentially going around my warehouse, and instead of me having to pick one sales order at a time, or indeed I might have the same item for multiple customers and multiple sales orders, I can consolidate all of those down together and then pick everything all at the same time. Now, I'm not going to do that today. So it's just simply in the first tab giving me a summary of that information. So we've got our sales order number, the customer delivery address, and again, where relevant, we've got all of our analysis codes. Now, I have mine configured to do a separate pick and pack and then dispatch. You don't have to. So if you're literally doing pick and dispatch, we can take that separate tab off there. So I'm going to come and pick it. So it's telling me the bin location that I need to go to in order to pick that item. So I'm going to go to my AC10A, and I've even got an image of what it looks like, just in case we don't know what a coffee machine looks like. Now, it could be that I get to that location and there's an issue. Not enough stock in that bin location, so I might need to change the bin location. It might be that I've got a problem, and you can have whatever problems you like listed in there, so I can report a problem. Or, of course, I can just simply scan it or key it in, and then I've picked it. Now, of course, the other thing that we can do is I've also got, just like we did on the purchase order, I can also take a photo of that, as I mentioned earlier on. And as you'll see, that will then store that against the sales order. Now, again, at this point, I can, of course, pack the items. And again, I can pack it into different types of packaging. Again, you can call these anything that you like. Or I can simply say, I've packed it, and I'm now going to dispatch it. So this is where I have the ability. So I don't know if you can see, it's telling me that it's going out through DPD. Now, we can give users the ability to change the delivery service if we want to, or we can take that away. Of course, we can print the packing list to put inside of the box. We can dispatch all the packed items. We've even got the flexibility to unpack it. So if we get a phone call to say hang fire, we need to put it all back, we've even got that option to do exactly that. So I'm going to dispatch all of the packed items, and this is the point where it's now talking to DPD. So it's putting all of that information into DPD's website for me, and it's now going to pull down all of that tracking information, and it's going to store it against the sales order for me automatically. Now, the other thing that it can do using, so there we go, now dispatched. The other thing that it can do, as you'll see if we come back to the Sage screen for a second, is that we can also automatically email out that tracking information and the dispatch note using our documents as part and parcel of document distribution. So it can also do all of that all at the same time. So there we go, it's dispatched. So if you can see, they're all dispatched. And if I come and have a look at my dispatches button, there's the tracking number. And if I come and show you an example of that courier label, obviously you wouldn't have to come in here to print it, would automatically print in the warehouse area for us. So there we go, number of packages, total amount of weight. We've got the name of the company, and there's the barcode label for us, which we then attach to the packaging for us. And if I come back into that screen, you'll see there's again our documents, which then give us the image, and it's also stored that dispatch note out for us as well automatically against that sales order. So it's doing all of that all at the same time using barcoding, courier integration, and documents. Right, so we've shipped something out. Let's have a look at the other kind of things that we can do inside of barcoding, shall we? So for those of you who are either considering our works order processing or indeed already got our works order processing, I'm just going to quickly create a new works order so you can see how we can pick one. So I think I might have already actually. Let's come and have a look at a works order, shall we? So let me see if I have one that we haven't actually already picked, shall we? So we've got our good old, yes, I have picked that and completed it. Bear with me, I'm going to quickly generate a new one on the fly. So let's come and do another combi controller. So my combi controller is, where are we? Can't see for looking. I've gone too far. Where are we? I think I need new glasses. Can't see it. Bear with me. There we go. Couldn't see it for looking. Right, so I'm going to say we want 2 of those. Quickly create that. Now, we have 2 options when it comes to how barcoding links through to the device. So I'm going to show you if I just quickly allocate that stock very quickly. So if I now come back into barcoding, you'll see that you've got two options. So if we scroll down the page, so I've either got the ability to do a back flushing of that works order, which means I don't have to allocate it up front. I can just simply book in the finished item and it will automatically allocate, pick and issue all of those individual components. So essentially it's taking out of stock all of the individual components and then booking into stock the finished item. So that's great for customers who perhaps have a very quick turnaround time of their finished item. So usually if you're manufacturing something, within the same day, hours, that tends to be something that's quite beneficial. So if back flushing isn't relevant for you, that's where this particular option is. So you'll see all it's done here is it's now pulled through all of the individual components that I now need to go and pick for that works order, along with, again, the bin location, of course, the quantities. So all I simply do, again, of course, if I'd got barcode labels for these, I could scan the items. So we're going to pick 2 of those. And again, if these items were batch traceable, it would force me to put in the batch traceable details. Or of course, again, if you're using that GS1 format barcode label that I talked about earlier on, I could literally scan the whole label in and it would automatically then feed in that batch information for me. So we're saying that we've picked it. So if I now come to and I'm now issuing it, again, 2. So we've now issued all of those. And all I'm simply going to do is it's giving me the ability to unissue if I need to. Otherwise, we're simply going to say I'm booking those 2 items in, and which location am I now going to put it in? So I'm going to put it into that bin location. So back in Sage, I no longer have those individual components. I have the finished item. So again, it eliminates the need to have bits of paper sending down to your warehouse team. And of course, it's a much, much quicker way of doing it. And it eliminates the need for you to then have to rekey in that information back in the office, of course, as well. So that's linking to our works orders. Now, I'm going to just briefly mention, I won't go through a demo of some of these errors. I'm just going to briefly mention some of the other touch points of some of our other modules that this integrates with. So for those of you who perhaps bring components in from abroad, with very long lead times and you're shipping them in via containers, this can link to our container manager, which sits in our distribution module. So the benefit of that is that you can book in the whole of the container and all of the purchase order line. So again, it's a much, much quicker and easier way of being able to do that. So that's where it links to distribution. The other thing that we can do is we can also link it to our projects module. So for any of you who, again, are using our projects module, we have the ability to do a stock issue. So again, it's moving the stock and it's capturing the cost of that stock component to the project as well for you. Now, we can also link it to our kitting module as well. So our kitting module is just a very simplistic way of assembling a couple of components. It's not a full works order. So again, we're just telling Sage that we no longer have the individual components and we're booking in the finished item. But we can also do a disassemble. So if we need to break down the components, so we might have either received a finished item and we're then breaking those components down. A great example of that is we have one customer in particular who they buy in large volumes of rice and then they sell them as individual 50, 500 grams, 1 kilograms of rice. So what they basically do is they have a list of how many bags they'll get out of this large, massive bag of rice that they receive in. So it's literally a case of touch a button in the screen and it just automatically disassembles all of that. Right, a couple of other things that I can do. I've also got the ability to move stock between bin locations. So I'm going to say I'm moving some stock from that's my item. And I'm moving it, sorry, let's take it from the bin location. would help if I actually scanned the bin instead of my stock item. So all it's now showing me is a list of all of the components that reside in that specific bin location. Now, of course, at this point, I could search, or of course, I could scan the item that I want to move. So I'm now going to say I want to move that duck mounting kit. And again, it's simply giving me the bin locations that I can now move it to. So I'm going to say I'm going to move that one, and I'm going to move it to the goods in location moved. And again, back in Sage, it's now automatically updated from one bin location to the other. And I can do exactly the same with warehouse as well. So I could do that as a multi. So if I've got lots of items I want to move from one bin location to another, we can do multiple items at the same time. Or as I've just shown you, we can do one item at a time. If you are wanting to dispatch stock between locations as well, we can do that. And we can also do warehouse transfers as well. Right, let's move on to stock take, shall we? So there's two ways that we can do a stock take. The usual, I'm producing a report. I want to go around all of my bin locations and all of my warehouses, but we've also got the ability to do what we call a dynamic stock take. So that's essentially kind of one on the fly, whereby I don't want to stock take every single item and every single warehouse. I simply want to stock take one item specifically. So let's start off with the usual one, which is the full-blown stock take. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to come into Standard Sage, and we're going to produce a stock take report, as you'll see. So if I come to my adjustments and manage stock take, obviously the benefit of this is that I'm not having to A, print a list, B, handwrite everything down, and then give that handwritten document to the office for them to then have to rekey that information in. It's going to just automatically update Sage for me. So if I now come and have a look at my device, you will see, if I come to my stock take now, it's simply going to, actually, I've already done a stock take. Bear with me. Sorry, that's the trouble of keep doing the stock takes. I haven't got anything. There we go. So all it's going to do is it's going to list all of the bin locations that I need to go do a stock take on. Now, you have two options at this point. You can either have a list of how many they should be finding, or as I've got, I get the staff to tell me how many they're actually finding. Now, you'll see that I've got a little barcode label there. That's just simply showing me that there's some additional information that I need to capture. And in this case, it's a batch traceable item. So I've now captured my batch traceable details, and I'm going to say the same. I have got a batch of 2 of those, and that's exactly how much I've counted. Oh, sorry, I haven't counted enough of my Voltarol. So let's do another one. Batch traceable, done. Okay. Let's do another one, 2. That also requires a date. So let's do today's date. So let's do let's do 102, 2025. So again, as you can see, where we have additional attributes like sell by date, batch traceable, serial number, it will force me to put that information in. But again, one of the benefits of having that GS1 format is I don't have to manually key that in. If I scan the barcode label, it will automatically populate all of this information for me all at the same time. Right, I then go to my next bin location and do exactly the same. So we're just simply working our way through all of the different bin locations. Now, if we come back to the report back in Sage now, you'll see that if I come to that one there, which is the one that we literally just did, you'll see, no, it wasn't that one. Make sure I choose the right one. It would help. It was, which one was it? Make sure I'm choosing the right one. It was, sorry, I can remember which one it was now. There we go. It was the 9th, wasn't it? It was that one there. So you'll see that we have an extra little column that shows us the differences and the variances. So this is what we're expecting, and this is the quantity. And then it's showing you what that variance is. So clearly, if you've got a massive variance between what you're expecting and what's actually being counted, then you need to tell your staff to go and do a recount. And they can do a recount on the device. Now, the other advantage of the barcoding device is that it will also populate through the additional traceable information, whereas the standard Sage screen in here doesn't have that extra field. So that's something that's specific to barcoding that allows us to automatically store that batch traceable information against the stock item as well. So that's a kind of a full-blown stock take where we're just making our way through every single warehouse and every single bin location. But as I said, if you just want to do one item or a couple of items on the fly and you don't want to produce the report and you don't want it as a full-blown one, this is where we can do our dynamic stock take. So I'm going to say I want to do a stock take of my Barocca. And it's simply going to create my stock take for me. And again, it's listing all of the different bin locations that that item resides in. So all I'm going to do is go to the bin location. Now, in this scenario, it's telling me how many I should count. So that's that little 2 up there. But of course, I could say, well, actually, I found 4. Now, one of the other benefits of our dynamic on the fly is that we can also add a found item. So unlike the standard Sage stock take, it doesn't give you that flexibility to say, well, I found something that we weren't expecting, that bin location. We can give you that flexibility to do that. So again, I'm going to say, how many have I found in that bin location? And again, Sage is updating. And again, I just simply work my way through all of the different bin locations. So that's stock take. Last couple of things. So I can do what's called a replenishment. So this is great where if you always want to keep some reserve stock of certain items. So you'll see I've created a reserve stock of, in my case, again, my good old Barocca. So it's telling me what I need to pick and what I need to put away. So I've reserved that stock for a specific customer. Now, again, that links into one of our distribution modules, so reserve stock. The next thing that we can do is we can do a stock inquiry. So if I want to see where stock is and how many we've got, what's been allocated, again, I can either scan an item or I can manually type in the name of the item. And you'll see, again, I'm just looking for my Barocca here. It's telling me the name. It's even giving me a photo of what it should look like. We've got the quantity that's on order. And then it's just simply showing me all of the different bin locations, again, that that item resides in, along with this time, how much free stock do we have? And how much has been allocated. So when we talk about free stock, that's net of allocations. Now, if we did have any on order, as is the case in here, it would then show us the purchase orders along with the supplies, the document number, and what's on order and what's outstanding. Now, of course, if you have multiple warehouses and you need your staff to be able to move around those different warehouses, it's a simple case of just giving them access to those warehouses, and then I can just simply switch between the warehouse accordingly. And that, in a nutshell, is our barcoding, our courier integration, and very, very briefly, our documents module. So Val, I don't know if we have any questions that have come through in the question section.
We don't have anything in the chat just yet, Sarah, but what I will do is I will just change the settings now so that everyone can have access to sound. Hopefully that should work for everyone.
Lovely, thanks, Val.
Okay.
Right.
There we are. So
Everybody's shy this morning. Shout out. Come on. What are your questions?
Maybe you've answered everything
Well,
in
I was
advance.
just about to say that. Perhaps I've answered everybody's questions.
I have a question, Sarah. Sorry, I don't know if we've got time, but I would be interested to see the other side of the container management. So I know you talked about booking a container in, but what's the other side of that where you are raising a container or ordering a container's worth of goods? I'd be interested to see how that side of it works.
Yeah, that's more distribution, Kezzy. So that wasn't the session for today. So I'm mindful of not sort of creeping into that. But that's as I said, that's our distribution module where you have the ability to essentially add a purchase order line to a essentially to a stock. So I can quickly show it. I'm just conscious of going off gender, off the original agenda, but essentially that's our documents module. So if I come into purchase order stock, there we go. Where are we? Container manager. There we go. So essentially it's giving you the ability to create containers. So these are all of my containers basically. And all I've basically done is I have linked individual purchase order lines. So these are all of my purchase order lines that I've linked to a container. And then on the barcoding device, we're simply saying we can book in all of these lines all in one go. But part and parcel of the container manager is being able to keep a track of the size and the volume. So this is essentially showing us that we've gone over the weight and over the volume. But it also gives us the ability to track where that container is. So if there's a delay in that container coming in, it also gives us that ability to update when it's actually coming in and mark if there's any problems, mark it as confirmed. So it's just storing that information centrally, basically within inside of Sage. So whether that's inside of the container manager, or if I come to a purchase order, if you bear with me 2 seconds, bear with me 2 ticks, we've also got that against a purchase order as well. So if I come to a purchase order, you'll see we've just got a couple of extra fields and tabs on a standard Sage. But again, this is using our distribution module, as I mentioned. So we've got that tracking tab there that allows us to update. So you can have lots of different tracking profiles to say, as an example, when something comes in from the China factory, what's the process, how many days, what's our provisional, what's the estimated lead time for that to come in. But if there's a problem, when are we then expecting it? What are the problems and any notes to go alongside that? And then against the line, we can also then link that individual line to a container. I can't do that now because we've obviously received that in, but can you see there's that extra field that allows the line to be linked to the container? And we can also say against the line, when are we expecting the delivery? So if we're getting different lines at in different containers and different stages, it allows us that flexibility to say, well, this line is on that container, and that's going to be a different expected date to the second line that might be on a different container that might have a different delivery date. So that's essentially the other side of the container manager. Okay.
That's very clever. Thank you.
That's okay.
Okay,
Anybody else?
Sorry, Sarah, I was going to say, we've not had any other questions come through.
Okay.
What I would say is we have got a recording of the session, which I will share with everyone that's attended this morning. So again, we'll send that out. And then if you do have any questions following the session, please just get in touch with Steve. And obviously we can follow up with you, Sarah, and arrange any follow-ups if need be.
Yeah, of course. Well, I hope that's been helpful for everybody. And as Val said, just let Steve know if you've got any questions or you'd like a follow-up one-to-one demonstration. We can always organise that for you. All right. Well, have a good day, everybody. Take care.